Greetings, everyone. Professor Natali here to talk briefly about the steps in the workforce planning process and the connections to other aspects of HR in the organization. It was good to get to know each other a little bit in week one. I really appreciate you spending some time sharing yourselves with us during the holidays. In the course material for week one, you're provided with a lot of information to paint the big picture of acquiring, recruiting, and retaining talent. There were articles on the types of labor, temps and contractors, along with explanations on the differences. There was also information on recruiting and sourcing, which we will cover specifically in week 6 again, and on outsourcing talent acquisition through RPOs, which I know we talked a little bit about in the discussion board. You also had a high-level overview of the workforce planning process in the reading material, and we'll continue to look at the plan and the connections this week. The first step in acquiring talent involves knowing what staff you already have, what you need, and how you can close the gap. Figuring out what talent you have is a supply analysis in which you evaluate how many people have the KSAOs, remember the knowledge, skills, abilities, and other characteristics needed to do the work for the company. A demand analysis is what you need in terms of skills and number of people, and that's usually by geographic location. The difference between our supply and our demand creates a gap, and that is what we need to fill, obviously. We do this in several ways through solution analysis. Can we find internal people to train and develop to fill the gap, or do we need to recruit them from outside? You are right if you're thinking that we are not adding any headcount if we recruit internally, but sometimes that is exactly what the objective is, to find X skills to not increase headcount. One way to do this is through internal candidates, and the other way, without increasing headcount, is through temporary and contractual workers, the contingent workforce that helps us remain flexible. If the goal is to add to headcount, then we will obviously need to look outside of our organization while also managing the movement of people inside the organization. As one person leaves a position internally, that opens their role. So while we fill one, we have one open, and it's a little hard to get ahead sometimes. There are several things that need to be in place in order for our workforce planning to be effective and successful. First, there needs to be a point person in HR, and this is usually the head of talent acquisition in large companies, or a person actually specifically for workforce planning. It can be an HR VP, an HR business partner in smaller organizations or within a specific geographic location. So you might have a corporate office that's driving the talent acquisition, but a local HR person that's really in charge of it for that location, and or a recruiter at the granular level. So recruiters in large organizations typically focus on a group of positions or a recruiting goal by business unit. At the same time, we need to have an executive leader champion, a senior person who's making sure that we have the resources and support needed to accomplish the goal. Without that, we really are spinning our wheels and fighting to try to get what we need. Likewise, we need to involve the shareholders, the stakeholders, and in this case, the stakeholders are the managers who are in need of the employees and the current employees who will be working alongside the new talent. They may even need to train the new hires, so gaining their buy-in on the best choices is a good idea, and that's sometimes why we have panel interviews, team interviews, etc. As we're looking to the outside of the organization for new people, we should also be coordinating with our training and succession planning partners on an ongoing basis to make sure we capture internal candidates who may be a good fit for those open roles. Workforce planning is an ongoing endeavor. As we bring a person into a new role, we still have turnover in other areas and transfers that are constantly moving our targeted numbers. So a decade ago, workforce planning was not necessarily even a separate function. It wasn't as structured. The function is now an entire profession with a Society for Workforce Planning Professionals and its own certification, a CWPP. So take a look at this chart and notice some of the differences from our traditional to our new approach. Okay, assignments for the week include a discussion in which your boss gives you some additional resources for workforce planning. That's unusual, but that is a good thing. You'll also be completing your first learning reflection. The link is in the module. Please keep in mind that this is not a quick quiz. The format is quiz-like and it appears to be asking purely for your opinion. However, there's more to it. In the final 2 questions, please explain what you learned in enough detail to warrant points for demonstrating your comprehension. What you write there is how I know what and how much you learned. It doesn't have to be lengthy, but it does need to be substantive, okay? Refer to one of the first announcements I posted listing the expectations. As always, if you have any questions at any time, please reach out to me via email. I'm also happy to talk via phone. Just send me an email with some suggested times and I'll arrange a time for us to meet, okay? Enjoy!